My name's Matthew. I'm an alcoholic. Blake, let me know if I'm centered over there. I'd hate to give somebody at home a resentment because my head's cut off.
Give me 1 second.
I'm just kidding.
A little bit to the right.
Mine or yours?
Don't matter, either one.
I'm just teasing. If I'm off screen, it's fine. I'm going to take this thing off if y'all don't mind. It's good to be here. It's good to be at my home group. It's good to be asked to do anything in AA. I think as far as jobs, I enjoy doing this, and treasurer might be my least two favorite things to do in AA. And I'm speaking tonight, and I'm co-treasurer, so that's how willing I am to do things. I have a home group. It's the primary purpose group of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you don't know where that's at, you're probably in the right place. Probably need to pick up a white chip later too, but it's good to be here. Good to see y'all. I have a sobriety date. It's December 29th of 2011, and for that I'm very grateful. And there's a household in Whispering Pines, North Carolina, that is also extremely grateful of that fact too. I sponsor guys. I am sponsored. I'm current with that sponsor, and what that means for me is that I don't have a sponsor in name only. I use them sometimes more often than others. Sometimes before I make bad decisions, sometimes right after I make bad decisions, but I tend to call them. I've started trying this new thing where I pray first and then call, and that seems to have cleared up a lot of the phone calls. I think I read it in a book somewhere to do that. But it's good to be here, and I'm glad to be here. So I think that's all the preliminary stuff, I guess. Service position, sobriety date, home group, all that stuff. That's good. It's my job up here to tell y'all what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like today. I think it's important for me to say, what I was like. Sometimes I hear people say what it was like. I can tell you right now, it isn't a lot different now than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever. Life is life. Life hadn't changed since I got sober. Stuff still happens. Bad things still happen. I still hurt people. People still hurt me. People die. It happens. But what is different today is how I react to it. And the way that I live my life today is hopefully vastly different than the way it was. I've got so much stuff in these pockets. I'm going to clean this thing out eventually. The suit. So the suit might be stolen because it might have come from a secondhand shop, and it doesn't have any tags in it. And as soon as I showed it to my dad, he was like, "It's probably a rental somebody just turned in." So we'll see if somebody comes after me. But yeah. Anyway, so I was born in South Boston, Virginia. And I moved here to North Carolina when I was 2. I don't remember it because I was 2. And I can't tell you much about my childhood other than it was a normal childhood, I guess. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. My parents are still together. We were raised in the church. This church, actually. I grew up in this church. So I was here running around as a kid when y'all were meeting 20-some years ago for the first time. You had no idea you were about to get me here in about 10, 15 years. Y'all might have moved before then if you knew it. But I'm going to try to say a lot of awkward jokes, so if y'all could just laugh at them, it makes Tim's going to get me handled. It makes the whole process a lot easier. Otherwise, it's going to be a painful 45 minutes, or however long I go for. But I can tell you this. I tried to blame my parents for a long time for the way I turned out. I went to therapy for years. I started going when I was 17, and I stopped at, early 20s. I went and saw shrinks and therapists and doctors, and they talked to me about all these things, about how I had all these pent-up emotions about my parents and not being loved or not being breastfed or being breastfed or whatever, whatever the psycho stuff says, I guess. And I tried that for a long time. I tried to blame them for the way I turned out. But looking back, I can tell you that I had the absolute best parents anybody could ask for. My parents did everything they could for me. If my parents thought that any action that they could have done would have saved me from the misery that I went through and the misery I put them through, they would have done it. They would have laid down on broken glass and let me crawl over them if they thought it would have helped. So what I know today is that's true, and I hope that every day I try to make living amends to them for the way I treated them. But despite all that, despite being brought up in the church and raised knowing what was right and wrong and being what seemed like a good kid with a good head on my shoulders, I felt different than everybody else. From as far back as I can remember. I remember being a kid and like being on the school bus and just like staring at the window and just like wondering, just watching the cars and the trees whiz past and just thinking about all this stuff and like thinking like maybe I'm like an alien or something, and like my parents just left me here like E.T. You know, I got left here as a baby, and any day they're going to come back and take me back home, and I'm going to be on this planet where like everybody is just like me, and I don't feel out of place anymore. I don't feel weird and I don't feel awkward. And it hadn't happened yet. I'll let you know if it does. But that was the way I felt. I just felt out of place, uncomfortable, weird. I felt like there was this, like I came with some assembly required, and they forgot to put me together right. And the way that made me feel was scared. I was scared all the time. I had no idea that I was scared. I didn't know that I was scared when I was a kid. But looking back after doing inventories and thinking about it, I mean, that's the only word that describes it. I was always afraid. I was so terrified of being found out for something that I had done, afraid of not getting something that I wanted, or afraid that something that I had was going to be taken away from me. I mean, those three things summed up my life. And the only way that I learned how to deal with that was I learned to lie. I learned a lot early on, because my biggest fear, and it still can be my fear sometimes, is that I'm not going to be good enough, that you're not going to like me. And I felt that all the time, and I was so afraid that if I wasn't the best son, my parents wouldn't love me. If I wasn't the best student, my teacher wouldn't like me. If I wasn't the best friend, then my friends wouldn't like me. And so what I learned to do early was lie, and I learned to put up this mask, and I put on this face, and I became an actor. And the big book describes us as actors, and I think that's fairly apt. We live a double life, is what it says. And I did. I lived a double life, a triple life, a quadruple life. I mean, who I was depended on who I was around. You know, I could figure out within about 5 minutes of meeting somebody and talking with them what I thought they wanted me to be, and I could reflect it right back to them, and I could be that thing that I thought that they wanted me to be. And I thought that made me likable, and I thought that made me fit in, but all it did was make me feel empty, and it made me feel alone and scared that I was going to be found out for what I really was, which was a fake. And I thought that if anybody could see what I thought on the inside, the way I felt, like what was in my heart, I thought that people would hate me and not like me like I didn't like myself. And that scared me a lot. And the first time I didn't feel that feeling of just being terrified and scared was sometime in high school. I got introduced to pills. And I don't even know what they were. I don't remember how old I was when I took them, but I just remember taking them, and they made me feel different. I didn't like the way that they made me feel. It made me feel miserable. It made me angry. Probably got into a fight with somebody over it, but like, it was the first time I wasn't scared. And it didn't start out off as a problem. It became a problem, but whenever I could get a hold of them, I would take them. And just to find some kind of relief, and I'd go over to sleepovers. I guess slumber parties are for whatever, 4-year-olds. But sleepovers, campouts, that sounds more manly. We'll go with that, campouts. I am not very manly, if that wasn't obvious. But I'd go over to like campouts with friends over at their houses. And 4 o'clock in the morning when everybody else is asleep, I'm up in the middle of the night like searching through medicine cabinets and seeing what I can find. Orange pill bottles with little martini glasses with X's over them I don't know what they were, but they were my personal favorite. And may cause drowsiness. That's another good symptom. And I took those things, and I don't even know if I understood what I was doing. I definitely didn't think I was doing drugs, because they came in a prescription bottle. I mean, granted, it wasn't mine, but it was somebody's. So I didn't think that I was a drug addict, because I went through DARE, and I knew how to say no. And they don't even do DARE anymore. Did y'all know that? That's upsetting. But I guess it didn't work, so I guess that doesn't matter. But I did that for a long time. I did that from the time I was in high school till the time I became a junior in college. And what college looked like up until my junior year was I got through high school without too much issue. I went to college and went to a good school. Or I guess it depends on your opinion. I think it's a good school. And it's not this year. For basketball, it's not going well. But what it looked like was I went up there, and all those feelings of like inadequacy, all those feelings of feeling different, of being less than, of being left out. I mean, it was like 1,000 times worse when I got up there. Like I went from being at a school with 1,200 kids, and I'm in the top 10, to now I'm at a school of 20,000, and everybody is in the top 10. Like half the people here are valedictorian and salutatorian of their school, and I'm none of those things. Half the people here like played multiple sports, and I like rode the pine on the football team. Like I just felt like I wasn't the same as everybody else up there. And none of my friends came with me, and I was just alone. And I had a roommate who was pledging, even though freshmen weren't supposed to pledge, but he was pledging, and he made drinking look like an Olympic sport. Like we'd be studying, and all of a sudden I'd hear like, you drinking? And we're studying? He's like, yeah, just trying to loosen up. Okay. So he was never there because he was always over at the frat house. And so I was just alone, just in my dorm alone. And I think at some point, one of those years, like, I think I realized that it had been about like 5 or 6 days, and I hadn't left my room except to just walk across my bathroom. The bathroom was literally across the hall from my room, and that had been the only place I'd gone for like 5 days. I just walked across the hallway to go to the bathroom. And like what a typical day looked like was I would wake up in the morning, or I'd come to sometime in the afternoon. And I would be in so much pain and so much agony. Like my whole body would hurt, and I would just be miserable, and my head would be killing me, and I felt like I hadn't had water in like a week. And I would just lay there in bed, and I would just think that like I probably have done some kind of damage that I can't fix. Like I've probably taken too much this time, and like I've like killed my kidneys or something. I don't know if that's even possible, but it was a real fear of mine. Like that I had like destroyed my liver, and like it was just a matter of time. I'm going to die. And so like I would walk to that bathroom. It was only 4 steps out of my door, and it felt like the longest walk in the world. And I would say this silent prayer on the way to the bathroom, and I would just say, God, if you please just let this not be the case. If you please just let me be okay. I promise I'm going to stop doing this stuff. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'll start going to class. I'll stop taking these medicines. I'll stop stealing them. I'll even go to church if you want me to. Like I'll do all these things. And I would get to the bathroom, and I would look, and I'd be like, I wouldn't say I looked good, but I didn't look like a corpse yet. I was close. I'd take a shower, and I'd start to feel better. And about a couple hours after that, I'd forget that promise that I'd made, and I'd think, well, maybe I kind of overreacted a little bit, and I'd start doing it again. And it was like one of my favorite movies is Groundhog Day, and like that's what it felt like. Like it felt like every day I woke up and it was the same hell every single day, like that I could not get out of. It was like it didn't even feel like everything was in color. It felt like everything was gray. And I was going to see student counseling and wellness, or whatever it was called at the time, and I was telling them all my problems and how depressed I was and how anxious I was, how scared I was about being like kicked out of school and like failing and all this stuff. But I'm not telling them the truth. I'm not telling them what I'm really doing to myself, and I'm not telling them I'm not going to class. And which if you're not going to class and not doing your work, it's probably reasonable to be afraid of failing. It's not an unreasonable fear. But what they did was they said, well, take these prescriptions and you'll feel better. And so I started taking those with the other stuff. And it didn't go well. All that changed my junior year. When my junior year rolled around, I was 21. And if you're good at math, I went to school at 17, and my junior year was when I was 21. So, yeah, it took me a while. And so I turned 21, and a friend of mine called me, this friend, and we went to dinner for my birthday, and went to this Italian restaurant. Italian's a stretch. I got chicken parmesan. It was like chicken tenders with ketchup and cheese. And she's talking about something. I don't even know what she's talking about. She's just like yammering on, and I'm just kind of like in my own head, nodding. And all of a sudden, the thought pops in my head, I'm 21, I should get a drink. That'd be fun. Now, I've never drank before in my life at this point. Like, I grew up Southern Baptist. We drink, but we just don't talk about it. First time my dad met my roommate in college, he found out he was Methodist. I don't know how that came up in everyday conversation, but it did. And the first thing my dad said to my roommate in college was, the difference between a Baptist and a Methodist is, right? He's like, no. He's like, Methodists will say hi to you at the liquor store, and a Baptist won't. I was like, okay. Anyway, but I never grew up around... It wasn't funny then either. This is a true story. I'm telling you a true story, okay? I never grew up around alcohol. My only interaction with alcohol was movies and TV. Like, that was it. That's all I knew about it. My dad was the child of an alcoholic mother, and my mom's grandfather was an alcoholic, and so they just kind of decided early on that they just didn't want it in the house, you know. And so we never were around it. The only time Dad had beer in the house one time a year when his buddy Dave would come down, and they would drink like 3 of them on the porch, and then the other 3 would sit in there until the next time Dave came around, and they'd throw them away and get 6 more. That's all it was. And I remember how bad it stunk when they were out there drinking. It smelled awful. But this night, I don't know why, but I just thought I'd like to go get a drink. So I asked her, and she was game. So we went to the liquor store. It was right across the street. I don't know if that's why I thought about it, but it was right there. We went over there, and she said, pick out whatever you like. So I walked around in there, and I picked out a bottle of Red Label Smirnoff. And the only reason I knew what that was is because that's what James Bond drank in the newer James Bond movies. I've been on a James Bond marathon at that point, and I thought if it's good enough for James Bond, it's good enough for me. I don't know if it's a coincidence that my role models in drinking, James Bond, like Doc Holliday from Tombstone, and Gregory House from the show House, were all addicts and alcoholics. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. But I don't know. It worked out well. So we went back to my dorm, and we started drinking this bottle. And I'm there with her, my 2 roommates, and I'm like up against the wall, like wallflower at my own party. And like I just feel uncomfortable, feel at ease, don't feel right, just same thing I always feel. And scared. And I start drinking this drink. And I'm not feeling anything. I'm actually kind of disappointed. Like, I just felt like this is not what I thought it was. I don't know what I thought it was going to be, but it's not it. And I get done with mine, and I'm watching her. And she was a tiny little thing. And as I'm watching her drink this cup that's as big as she is, I see her cheeks start to get red. And she starts laughing a lot. And she starts giggling a lot. And everything everybody says is funny. And she's like hugging on people and dancing. And I'm like, what is wrong with her? Why is she acting like that? Like, why is she acting so strange? And I finish my drink, and I go back over to the bottle, and I just pour straight vodka in there, just fill it up to the top with vodka. And I turn that cup over and like pour it down my throat. And it was like, I mean, it burned all the way down. I don't know how. She made a weak drink, I guess, apparently, the first time she made it. I think burned all the way down. But like in my head, I'm like, don't cough, don't choke. Like, you can't look like you can't handle it. Like, everybody's watching you. Like, nobody cares what I'm doing. Like, everybody's over there. But in my mind, everybody's watching me. And I choke it down, you breathe through your nose. And I get it down, and it was within seconds. I mean, within moments. Like, I could feel this warmth in my gut. Like, it just felt like somebody had lit like a small little candle. And the more I sipped on that drink, the easier it got to sip on it, and the warmer my stomach got. And it just started radiating out all over my body, and it felt like lightning struck me. I mean, like, every hair on my body was standing on end from bottom to top. And within 15 minutes of taking that first big shot of vodka, I didn't care about anything else on this earth except for how good I felt. Like, for the first time in my life, I was not afraid anymore. And I felt amazing. And I thought in my heart, like, this is what normal people look like all the time. Like, this is it. I found the solution. And I had a great time, had a great night. Like, I walked out and I joined that party. Like, not only was I glad to be there, but everybody else should have been glad I was there too. Like, this is the greatest thing. This is the greatest feeling in the world. And I had a big time, had a good time, and remember the whole night. I didn't say anything stupid to anybody. I didn't have to apologize the next day. The police weren't called. I didn't wake up somewhere I didn't know that I was going to end up at. That wouldn't always be my policy when I drank, but it was that night. And I loved it. At the end of the night, they sobered her up enough to get her out of there. Probably good. Didn't have to make amends for that. Sent her on home. And they tucked me into bed, like literally tucked me in. Gave me a piece of toast and a bottle of water, and I'm laying there with my toast and my water. And I'm just like laying there looking up at the ceiling. And I felt like a little kid on Christmas Eve. Like, I could not wait for tomorrow because I was going to do it all over again. Like, I loved it. And I went back to the liquor store, and I got 2 more bottles, and I drank them both by myself, and I was like off to the races. Like, I drank every day. Like, every chance I got, I drank. I loved it. And all I wanted, every single time I drank, all I wanted was I wanted to feel that feeling that I felt when that liquor hit the back of my throat. Like, I wanted that burn, and I wanted to feel that relief that I felt so quickly. God sent a tornado to tell us to get out of here. Real quick. So Blake and me were teasing each other about this. So when he spoke, he said that he was a little disappointed because we weren't back upstairs yet. He wanted to be in front of the big group and like all this kind of stuff or whatever. And then he asked me to speak, and this is the second night we've been up here, but it's okay because God sent a tornado and told everybody to stay home, so it's fine. It balances out. But it is good. I was texting with Dakota earlier today, and he said, looking forward to it tonight. And I quoted the line from the Big Book about, ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing. But apparently it started. But all I wanted to feel that from then on out was that feeling I felt that first night. And like when I drank, that's what I wanted. I just wanted to get that feeling. And it was easy at first. Like every time I drank, I felt it. But I noticed something was very different about the way that I drank from the beginning. Like normal people could like go to dinner, or like my friends. Like I thought I was normal at the time for the most part. And we would go to dinner and like they would have like half a beer and some water, and like that was it. And then like me, I would have like not a beer, I would have something stronger, and then I'd have another, and then I'd have another, and I'd have another. Like it never crossed my mind. Like I never even thought about it. Like I would drink way more than they would from the very beginning. And I would come home on like a Tuesday at like 5 o'clock, and like I'm already drinking. Like as soon as I get home, as soon as I'm done with school, I'm drinking. And like they're not. Like they're doing crazy things like studying and writing papers, going out with their girlfriends and all that stuff. I'm just drinking alone at home. I noticed that pretty quick. I also noticed that there started to be these, book describes it, peculiar mental blank spots. There started to be some blank spots in my memory sometimes. It wasn't alarming at first until the first time I woke up and the blank spot was like all evening. That was pretty alarming. I woke up the next day and like walked down to the living room, and there was, it looked like a tornado had gone through that living room. And I'm like, what the heck happened in here? And they're like, you happened here. I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, you were like nuts. You were like throwing stuff across the room, tearing things off the wall. Like, what happened? I was like, I have no idea. I don't remember. Like, I got no idea. And like, it was funny the first time. It wasn't nearly as funny the second time, the third time, the fourth time. It started to get to the point where they didn't want to be there. They would start finding ways to like stay out later and later and later. Two of the guys had girlfriends on campus, so they just started staying with them. Like they're paying to stay in this apartment with me, and they're staying with their girlfriend just to stay away from me because of how crazy I act when I start drinking. One of my poor roommates, he lived in Ohio, so he couldn't get away. And like I didn't intend to, but I tormented that kid. Like, I mean, every night he had no idea what was going to happen. Like, he'd smell the vodka. That's bad when you can smell it. It's, it's not good. He'd smell it and he'd lock his door instantly. Like, that's terrible. I woke up one morning and I was covered in blood. I was pretty convinced that I'd killed my roommate. So I went and knocked on his door, and it was locked, and he didn't answer, which didn't alleviate my fears. Turns out in the middle of the night I had like chewed half my lip off, and I was still so drunk I didn't even feel it. Like the whole inside of my mouth was just gone, and I was just bleeding everywhere. Just the level of insanity when I drank was insane. One of the last times I blacked out up there before I was escorted off campus. I remember waking up, and the night before I had really tried to not black out. I don't know how you try to not black out, but I had attempted it. I tried my hardest. Changed my attempt, good intentions. So I really tried. And it didn't work. And I woke up, and I walked into the living room, and I saw the destruction again, the chaos that I'd caused again. And I knew I'd caused it. And Steve loves this. I broke several phones in that time through biting them. You texted me about that the other day, asking me how many I broke. I don't know how many I broke, but apparently one of my favorite things to do while drinking was biting phones. So I broke a lot of phones doing that. Ended up with a flip phone. That thing lasted like 5 years. I don't know if it was the phone or it was sobriety, but one of the two things did it. But I walked down to the living room and I looked at the chaos that I'd caused again, and I knew I had done it. And I fell to my knees, and I was just like, please, dear God, let me be a normal alcoholic. Like, I'm okay with being an alcoholic. I accept that judgment, but please, like, let me be the one that, like, drinks too much, says something stupid, and then passes out on the couch. Like, please let me do that. Like, not drinking was not even an option at that point. Like, I knew that I could not drink. But like, I wanted so bad for the bad stuff to stop happening. And I couldn't make it stop. I started waking up. At that point, like, the blackouts were almost all of my drinking, and I drank every night. I'd black out almost every night. I started waking up in the hospital with some very unforgiving nurses and police officers explaining to me what had happened the night before. That got very expensive, but the bills were not sent to my dorm. They were sent to my home, my parents' home, since their name's on the deed. And they were about 3 months delayed. So about 3 months after all the craziness started, they start getting bill after bill after bill after bill after bill, and I've told them nothing. I ended up getting kicked out of school and getting charged as a direct result of drinking. Like, did something stupid and got arrested and got sent home on my birthday. So I drank, and that was my last drink, actually. My last drink was on August 21st, and my birthday was on September the 8th, and I got kicked out, and the warrant was issued on September the 8th. I think they did that intentionally. Like, I feel like the cop was, like, waiting for that. But he showed up on my birthday, and he knew it. He, like, served me the papers, and then as he was walking away, he's like, "Oh, by the way, happy birthday." Thanks. So I go and I'm living back at home with my parents, and like what my life looked like at this point was, I was a senior in college. Well, I was a senior, and I had one semester left. Like, that semester was it, and I was done in December, and I would have been gone, never would have had to go back to that place ever again. Everything's over. Like, I'm finished, and I'm expelled. So that's done. The girlfriend, who I've been dating for like 4 years now, and like held her hostage the whole time, she's gone. She's finally like gotten smart and like started like taking care of herself and getting away from me. She spent most of her time away from me at a different school, so like she didn't really understand like how awful it was. My senior year, she transferred, and it took her about a week to like realize like, oh my God, what in the world's been happening over here? Which is good that she got out. And because as long as I have somebody else there, like, I'll justify whatever I'm doing. Like, well, I can't be that bad. She's still here. Like, it can't be that awful. And then when they leave, it's like, well, okay, well, maybe it is that bad. Living at home with my parents, in the house I grew up in the bedroom I grew up in, on a single bed that's bunked with my 10-year-old little brother. Like, that's what my life looked like at 22 years old. I've drank for a grand total of a year. And what I can say is this. Like, I am grateful for the traditions of AA. And I'm grateful that the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. Because at that point in my life, I had an extremely strong desire to stop drinking. I was doing a lot of other stuff, a lot of other dumb stuff. Drugs, sex, gambling, whatever, like just bad decisions. But I found relief in Alcoholics Anonymous. And what I can say is this, like, I used drugs for a lot longer than I drank. I drank for a year, and I used drugs for like 6. But I could manage on drugs, as weird as that sounds. Like, I could get by. When I started drinking, I was driven to my knees by alcohol. Like, I couldn't function. Like, as soon as I started drinking within a week, like, my life was completely dysfunctional. To like a point where like I was having problems. And so what I know is that I was very confused when I came to AA because I was afraid to tell anybody that I used pills. And I thought that if I told anybody that they would judge me and say that you don't belong here, you need to go to NA. And I'm just grateful that it was explained to me by good sponsorship that my reason for being here is because I'm an alcoholic, and I am one. But living at home, it didn't stop the problems. My parents had this rule, I thought was a little bit, draconian, no alcohol in the house, or weed, whatever. Okay, I'll do that. And I would just go and like drink at somebody else's house. They had these other rules too, like, we're trying to raise 3 other kids in this house. And like, you can't be coming home at like 4 a.m. drunk. Okay, so I'd start sleeping in the parking lot when I couldn't make it home by midnight. That was okay. And what it looked like was, like, from my parents' point of view, my mom's a nurse. Like, I'm not saying that like what I did was okay or what anything, but like she's built to help people. Like, that's what she does. Like, it's in her very DNA. Like, she was built to be a nurse. She was built to be a mother. Like, she takes care of everyone else, and then she takes care of herself. Like, my dad is very serious, but he's very kind at the same time. He was not built that way. Like, what I did to him and to my parents affected him, I think, a lot worse than it affected my mom. And so, like, at night, when I wouldn't be home yet, and I'd be out doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and I'd come in at like 2 a.m, Mom would be in bed. Like, she could do that. She could go to sleep. Dad would not be in bed. Dad would be awake. And I would get so mad when I would come in the house, and he'd be in there, standing there in the kitchen in his boxers, all ticked off at me and start fussing at me. Like, or even if he didn't fuss at me. Like, sometimes he would see I'd get there and he'd go to bed. It would make me so mad that he was still up, that he waited on me. And what I know today is that he wasn't waiting up because he wanted to fuss at me or because he wanted to yell at me or anything like that. He was staying up because he could not sleep. Like, he could not sleep without knowing where I was. Like, it scared him to death that when he got a knock at the door, it wasn't going to be me. It was going to be some cop telling him that I was dead somewhere. Like, he could not sleep. And he had to wake up at 5 a.m. the next morning to go to work. Like, he did that almost every night. And, I mean, it's insane what we do to our family members and what I did. But as I'm living at home, my life's getting worse and worse. I started going to some AA meetings because they had this other rule that I had to go to AA meetings. So I started going. And if I made it on time, I'd come in, and I'd sit down, and I'd stay. And when y'all got up to pray, I'd sneak out the back, roll on. If I didn't quite make it on time, well, I can't disrupt the meeting and come in late. So I'd go to the liquor store and drink instead. Sometimes I'd be so tired, I'd sleep in the parking lot and wait for everybody to leave, and then I'd leave. And every so often I'd come in and grab a chip and take it home to Mom and be like, yeah, I've got such and such many days. It's like, I've been going to meetings for 15 days. Here's a 60-day chip. Yeah, there you go. Or they're doing triple time right now. It's like some kind of special. It's like BOGO. And I think my parents knew. I mean, I wasn't getting any better. But I was working a lot, and I was staying out of the home, and truly what it was I was so embarrassed to go home, I stayed gone most of the time. And at some point in that time, I was absolutely miserable. I was going to meetings, kinda. I wasn't working with a sponsor. I had one, but we had this conversation about, if you're trying to stay sober, you can't smoke weed, and it's probably bad for sobriety. So I got into resentment at him and didn't have to talk to him anymore. That was good. So I wasn't using him. I wasn't doing any work or anything like that. I certainly wasn't helping people. And what I can tell you is that when we tell people, don't drink and go to meetings, I think that's some of the worst advice we can give to somebody. Don't drink and go to meetings, that's what I did. And it's a recipe for suicide. We're going to get some relief. I needed relief in my life. I was either going to drink or I was going to kill myself. That was the only two options in my mind. And at that point in my life, I understood that drinking was not a solution anymore. Every time I drank, it made matters worse. And so that was pretty clear to me. I mean, if there's two options and one of them doesn't work anymore, the other one's got to be the only way out. I was standing in the hallway of my parents' house one day, and I think it was the day that the girlfriend had broken up with me, and it was the day that everything happened. The girlfriend broke up, got kicked out of school, all this stuff happens on the same day. And my mom was talking to me, and I just started bawling, and she hugged me, and I just collapsed. I just fell into the ground, and I was she was sitting there in the floor, holding me like I was a baby. And I was just bawling my eyes out, and I said, alcohol has taken everything from me. And she was just sitting there combing my hair, brushing my hair. And I was drunk a week later. It didn't stop me. Mom brought that up. She's like, didn't you just say alcohol's taken everything from you? And I just shrugged and got mad. I did that for 3 months. Into December 2011, I'd had enough. It was a normal day. Just a normal day like any other day. It was actually kind of warm for December. I went home. Dad was in the back of the house cleaning stuff. Mom was in the living room with Mallory and Chandler, my brother and sister. And I was in the bedroom, and I just decided I was done. I didn't want to do it anymore. What my life looked like was whenever I woke up, this highlight reel of terrible thoughts started in my head of let's play every bad thing you've ever done. Let's just play that right now in your head. Let's just start playing it, and we're not going to stop playing it until you pass out. It's just going to be that all the time. And I felt like I remembered everything, every dumb thing I had said, everything that I'd done to other people, the pain that I saw in my parents' faces when I would look at them. I felt so ashamed for all the things that I had done, but I had no relief, and I couldn't talk to anybody about it, and I was too scared to say anything. And so the only thing that ever made it stop was drinking. But every time I drank, I did something stupid. I did something else that added to that fire. And I knew drinking wasn't an option anymore. It wasn't going to work anymore. Because the last time that I drank, I put that bottle up to my lips and nothing. I don't remember anything. Like, as soon as it hit my lips, I blacked out. Like, I don't remember anything. And so liquor didn't do it for me anymore. And so on that day, I decided I was going to take everything in the house that I thought might kill me and lay down in bed with no intention of waking up. I had made attempts on my life before. I've slit wrists before. I've got scars all over for just bad decisions that I've made in the past. I've taken overdoses before. I've driven cars crazy and wrecked them. And some of that stuff was attention seeking. Well, most of it was attention seeking. Some of that stuff, I kind of meant it, but I don't think I was in the right frame of mind to really understand that, hey, I'm going to die. I think it was more like the Tom Sawyer mentality of he's going to watch his own funeral. I'm going to die and everybody's going to feel sorry for me. They're going to be sorry when I'm gone. It's but you're dead. You're not going to be there to realize it. And what I know now, looking back, I didn't want to die. Most people that are suicidal, I found, don't want to die. I wanted relief. I just wanted to not feel that way anymore. I just wanted it to stop, and I couldn't make it stop. And that was the only way I knew to make it stop. I thought that everybody else would be better off without me. If I would stop ruining my family's life, they'd be better. And so I laid down in bed with no intention of waking up. And I don't know what I thought I'd feel, but as I laid there, I could feel my head kind of swimming and something in me was changing. And what I felt was absolute terror, like I'd never felt before in my life. And I had this realization in my head, in my heart too, that I wasn't particularly religious. I considered myself Christian, but I wasn't a very good one. I knew that there was no religion, no spiritual aspect, no program on this earth said that bad people get good things when they leave this world. And I knew that I did absolutely horrible things to the people that loved me most. I knew what that meant. I knew that there was nothing good waiting for me. And that scared me. I knew that there was nothing good waiting. And I blacked out. And I don't remember anything for 3 days. I woke up 3 days later and I was standing in detox for the 5th time. And it was New Year's Eve. The first memory I have is standing in detox and the ball was dropping for New Year's Eve. And I remember thinking, my life is over. This was I've gone through plan A to plan Z. Plan Z is if all the other plans don't work, kill myself, and I'm done. And I couldn't even do that right. Everything I touched, I screwed up. And I remember feeling just absolutely hopeless, I was never going to make it out. And going back to Groundhog Day again, that scene where he takes the toaster and walks into the bathroom and just drops it in there, and he wakes up immediately. That's what it felt like. It was like some cruel joke that I couldn't escape from. And Big Book says that when the time is right and you are right, providence will provide. God had beat me into a state where I was so messed up and so broken that I was willing to try something new. And while I was up there, a guy from AA came. And he was in that room in there and he shared his story. And for the first time in my life, when I heard another human being talk about themselves, I felt a connection to another human being. I felt like this person knew what it was like to be me. And not only did I feel like they knew what it was like to be me, but they had overcome the same problems that I was trying to overcome. And I was still pretty foggy. He was wearing, this is how much I remember of it. He was wearing a Nautica shirt with one of those sailboats on it. And he talked about owning his own business in there. And I'm sitting there the whole time was he on a marina or something? That's how messed up I was. I wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer at the time. It hadn't gotten much better. I was pretty foggy. And but I do remember that was the first time I ever thought maybe I'm not alone. And I talked to him afterwards, and I told him a little bit about me, and he said, you're probably an alcoholic and you're probably on human aid. I don't think he said it in those words, but something along those lines. He's probably oh my God. But he asked me a question. He said, do you pray? And I was like, well, yeah, I grew up, Baptist. It's not what I asked you. Do you pray? Really, the only time I pray is when I'm in trouble. And he's like, well, you're in detox. Do you think you're in trouble? I was like, yeah, probably. He's like, when you go back to your room, just thank God for helping you stay sober today. When you go to sleep, and when you wake up the next day, ask him to do it again. He said, I'm not asking you to believe it, I'm just asking you to do it. Okay. I went back to my room, and I'm not good at following directions. So I half measures, I guess. I did get down on my knees, and I didn't want to stay sober. Well, what I really wanted to do was I wanted to sleep. I hated being in that detox place. They come and check on you every 15 minutes. They don't even give you pants. It's awful. If you haven't been, I don't suggest it. And I couldn't sleep. I mean, it felt like an eternity in there. What I wanted to do more than anything was sleep. And so I got on my knees and I said, God, just please help me sleep tonight. And I laid down in bed and I fell asleep. And it was the first time I felt like that God had answered a prayer. And it gave me a little bit of hope in this thing. And I woke up the next morning and I think I did ask God to help me. I think I just said help me. I didn't say stay sober. I didn't go that far yet. When I got out of there, I went to some AA meetings and I found that guy and I asked him would he help me. And he agreed, and we sat down together every single week and we read that book. He took time away from his family to spend time with me when I was not a pleasant person to be around. I don't think showering or brushing my teeth was a high priority at the time. I was not pleasant. I was very angry and very upset. Like, this is how sick I was. Like, I'd be sitting in a meeting and like somebody would pick up like 30 days and be like, I remember Taylor saying it one time, this is the only place on earth where everyone in this room is happy and wants you to do well. And I'm like, nah, I don't want people to do well. Like, I'm miserable. Like, I want everyone else to be as miserable as I am. And I tried my best to make everyone around me miserable. But we started working through those steps, and I was so foggy that I could read the same line in that book 100 times, and I couldn't even like repeat the words to you, let alone tell you what it meant. But for some reason, when he read it to me, it made perfect sense. And that's the way I take guys through the book now. I read it to them. I read every line to them. And it says do a step, we do a step. And I do it with them. We take it together. If it says get on our knees and pray, we get on our knees right there. I don't care where we are. We're praying. That's what the book told me to do. And it saved my life, and I know it'll save somebody else's life. And what I realized is I really didn't want to stay sober. What I really wanted to do was like try this thing to the best of my ability. I was going to try. So that like 10 years from now, when I start drinking again, I can be like, hey, yeah, that AA thing, it didn't work out. You know, I tried it. It's okay. But I'm good now. I'm going to drink now. But I think about 6 months in, after I'd taken the inventory and done the 5th step, and I got, holy mackerel, I got all that weight off my chest. All those things like that played all the time. Because when I got sober, that highlight reel of awfulness didn't stop. Like, it just kept going. It didn't stop until I took my 5th step, and I finally said those things, and I got that toxicity out of my heart, and I cleared all that junk out, and I started making amends for the things that I had done. Those things started disappearing one at a time out of that list. And like today when I wake up, it doesn't start playing anymore like it used to. I think about 6 months sober, I realized it's been a long time since I thought about alcohol, and it's been an even longer time since I drink, and I came to the realization that if I wanted to not drink, I didn't have to. And I made a decision that I was going to not drink. And I've been trying to do this thing since then. I don't want to give you the impression that sobriety is a cakewalk. It's infinitely better than the life I used to live, but stuff still happens. Life still shows up. I've lost people in my life. I've lost both grandparents in sobriety. I lost my mother's mother 2 years ago. That was hard. That's probably the hardest thing I've ever experienced. Like, I didn't know that something could hurt that bad. Like, I really didn't understand. And like, you think people just close their eyes and go to sleep. They don't. They struggle. And but what I know is that when I got the phone call that she was going into the hospital, I was able to take off work, and I was able to go see her and spend time with her. And but when I left that hospital to have to go home to go back to work, there was nothing left to be said. Like, we were good. Everything was good. And when she took her final breath, I knew that, like, she was at peace, I was at peace. I don't have to go to her graveside and do anything like that. It was good. She just got to enjoy the last years with her family. And I got to give her a sober grandson, which I robbed her of for a long time. And so, like, what I tried to do now is I try to be a good brother. Like, I'm the oldest of 4, and I've got 3 younger siblings, because that's how math works. And I try to be a good big brother, like, because I wasn't for a long time. Me and my brother and my sister were talking one time, and it's been a few years, and we were just talking about things, and I'd already made amends to them, and we got to talking about the old stuff, and my brother just stopped in the middle of it, and he said, the worst thing about it was, and they were like 10 or 12 at the time, he said the worst thing about it is whenever they took you away, whenever the ambulance would come and get you, or whenever mom and dad would take you to the hospital, he said, I would lay in bed and I would just be so scared you would never come back. And like, that's tough. Like, that's real tough to like hear. And but we're closer today I'm closer to them than I think I am to any other human being that, on this planet. And we talk every day. My parents, we talk all the time. My dad, he comes over on Wednesdays now, and I cook dinner for us. He comes in, he sits down on the couch, and I cook dinner, we eat, he goes and sits back down on the couch, and I do dishes and clean up everything, and then when he leaves, I give him something to take home. I love it. I love having him come over and just spending time with him. Like, I enjoy that. I'm glad I get to do that. And it's fun. And I'm running out of time, but I'll just close up with two last things. I think that amends are vastly important in this thing, and living amends are, I think, to me, are one of the most important ones. It's easy to write a check. It's easy to go to somebody that we never see and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I suck. It's fine. Forgive me," and that's fine. But it's really hard to live every day and be something that, like, for me, is difficult. Like, that's not the kind of person that I ever was. And so to do that today is nice. I made amends to my boss. I stole a lot from him. I was able to make amends for that. And I told him I was willing to accept any consequence that came with it. But I wasn't willing to drink again. And that went well. It was one of the 9 times out of 10 that things went well. But I'm just grateful that this program is here. And I'm grateful that you people are here. Like, that you've been here this whole time and that you've helped me so much. I'm grateful for the new people that come in here because, like, I don't know, like, everybody that comes in here, like, I don't know why, but we just seem to, like, see eye to eye. Like, I love y'all. Like, that doesn't happen in a lot of places. I go to work and a new person comes in and I'm like, I don't know if I like that person. But every person that comes in here, I'm like my best friend. I've never met him before. I don't know why. Maybe we're just alike. I'll close on this. Me and my dad, me and my dad's favorite movies is Tombstone with Val Kilmer and Kurt Russell. You know that movie? It's a great movie. It's another one of my favorites. I like Doc Holliday. He drank a lot of whiskey, so I did too. There's a scene at the end of it where Doc's dying of tuberculosis, and Wyatt comes in, and they're talking with each other, and Doc asks Wyatt, "What do you want out of life?" And Wyatt says, "Just to live a normal life." And Doc says, "There's no normal life. There's just life. Get on with it." And he says, "I don't know how." And so Doc tells him how. My whole life, I wanted to be normal. Like, I wanted so bad to live a normal life. I wanted to be normal just like everybody else. And what I realized today is there's no normal life. There's just life. I just didn't know how to live in it. You people taught me how to live in it. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for y'all, and I'm going to close with that. Thank you.